let's chuck out a couple of tips if you're going out chasing jungle perch. Firstly, where to find these things, right? So there's jungle perch, layman's speaking, can be found from Mackay all the way north of Cairns up into the Daintree, up around Townsville here where I'm based. We've got a bit of a natural divide for them, but generally most of your creeks from say Black River north of Townsville has got them in. There's a bit of a gap south of us here towards Mackay. For some reason they don't show up there. First things first, with walking most of these creeks or whatever, check out local laws and that sort of stuff. I know there's a big misconception about Crown land. If you're staying below the high water mark, you're on Crown land, and as long as you don't cross anyone's fences or go through gates and that sort of stuff, that legally you're entitled to be there. That's not always the case. We still have some covenants, for lack of a better phrase, up here with old properties where the land actually includes the creek bed as well. So my best advice with that is go and talk to landowners. Most of them probably would appreciate an approach from an angler wanting to go and fish their land. It's common courtesy, the way that I sort of do it. I'll approach them with the intent of, look, I'm just there to fish. I've got no interest in keeping any of your fish and whatever. I'll grab their phone numbers, build a bit of a rapport with them, do the courtesy, bring them when you're heading out there. At the end of the day, whether we like it or not, it's still someone's backyard that you're fishing in. I personally wouldn't like anyone just randomly walking through my backyard. With property owners, if you give them that sort of respect, you'll find quite often it's reciprocated, and those guys really appreciate it. That's how I've managed to get onto some of the properties that I fish, to the point where I'm pretty confident some of the properties I'm the only one allowed on there, because I'll be the first one that's ever offered them that sort of courtesy. So JPs, obviously these fish take them to some incredible, spectacular places. They live in cool spots. They're definitely not the biggest fish that you're ever going to catch, but I'll tell you what, there's always one more bend and you can always walk that little bit further. In saying that, as far as your trip planning goes, for me it's very important, let someone know where you're going and give them an ETA of when you're going to be back or back into phone reception. I do that with Cassie, the wife. If I say, look, you'll hear from me by 4 o'clock, then make sure that they hear by you from 4 o'clock. It's not fair on those people getting panicked, because you did walk the extra mile and, you sort of came back late or whatever, and they're worrying, did something bad happen or not. I know, sort of bad things don't happen often, but it's never impossible for them to happen. Where we're walking up here, there's a lot of snakes, so we encounter a lot of red bellied black snakes, death adders, which I've probably walked past thousands of things and I've only ever seen 2 in all my years chasing JPs. So they are around. Definitely keep those things in mind. With chasing the JPs, that's why, silly as it seems, carry a snake bite kit. There's 3 glorified bandages, but I know by the time, if something bad does happen and I need to use that thing, by the time I can set my EPIRB off, my PLB, or ring someone and say, hey, I'm in trouble here, I can look after myself for that little bit. Getting back to the fish themselves, a couple of tips for chasing jungle perch. When I'm approaching a stream or a pool, I'll always try and fish upstream, okay? The 2 reasons for that is, the biggest reason is it keeps your noise of being there down. These fish are really perceptive of their surroundings. They're really flighty. So if you come crashing down the bank, walking in the water really loudly and not sort of stealthing them, they will know that you're there and they will shut down the whole pool. You get one fish shut down in a pool, they'll all shut down and they just won't eat. You'll see them, you'll physically walk past and see them and you won't get a bite out of them, which can be really frustrating sometimes. So that upstream approach definitely helps to control your noise while you're in the water. The second thing is too, that it gives you a more natural lure presentation when you are targeting these guys. So I really like making super long casts up to the headwaters of the pool. I try and cast in the middle of the pool, or depending on the setup actually, because they're very reactive feeders. So if you cast up in the middle of the pool, they'll see something land, they'll all race over from both sides of the pool, whichever side they're sitting on, and I find it gives you a better chance of hooking a fish out of one of those pools than individually structured targeting, if that makes sense. So yeah, definitely long casts, keep your noise down, and fishing upstream, bringing your lure back down is a natural presentation. They ambush predators. They don't move around that much, so they will quite often just sit in a set of rapids. They'll keep their eye on that bubble line, similar to the way that trout do, and that's where most of your food will come down. So bubble lines, in mentioning them, very important. So if you've got a set of rapids coming down into a pool, I'll always try and put my first cast into that bubble line in the rapids. You'll have your fast water coming in, you'll have a bubble line just on the edge of that, and then you'll have your slack water. Most of the food and everything's going to congregate in that bubble line. So if you can get your first cast to land in that bubble line, you're winning already. So fishing upstream, definitely super important. I like fishing 3-inch minnows. The reason for that is the fact that they heavy plastics. With the Z-Mans, they're buoyant, so I can fish the whole water column with those guys. And with the weight in them, I can make really long and accurate casts. I rig them weedless on a 3/0 chinlocks hook. The reason I like doing that is I can overshoot my cast, so I can actually cast past what I actually want to fish, put the lure on the bank, put it into the grass on the opposite side of the pool, or completely overshoot it if I want, wind it back in, get it into that effective strike zone, and then work my lure through there. What I like about the minnows, like I just mentioned before too, is I can fish the whole water column with them. So I can go from a 3-inch minnow, buzzing it across the surface if they're feeding really aggressively, to putting it onto a jig head, attaching that to a jig spinner, and then fishing it into a 3-meter sunken hole underneath some roots or whatever. So yeah, the minnow's really super versatile lures. If I had to choose one lure, if we're going for a JP fish right now and tie one lure on to catch one, it's going to be a 3-inch minnow every single time. Colour wise, I like reactive colours, so bright pinks, electric chicken, that sort of stuff over there. Sexy pennies are a really good colour too. In saying that too, because they're reactionary, they'll see something moving, they think, I better eat this before somebody else does, which plays in our favour. Sometimes they can be very stubborn and very tuned into what's going on. So another good tip is take note of what's going on around you while you're walking. I know we get focused on the fish and we just want to walk and chase that fish, but get focused on what's happening around you. If you're walking along, I watch my feet while I'm walking because I'm looking out for snakes and that sort of stuff. If you see little green tree frogs jumping into the water while you're walking, that tells me there's a lot of frog activity around. Then I'll go to something like my finesse frogs. I'll throw those for a little bit and see what's going on. Have a listen to the insects around. If you hear a lot of cicadas, it tells me there's a lot of insects going around. Then I'll go to like a natural colour, like a mud minnow type colour, 3-inch minnow, throw a buggy imitation. And if you're walking through the grass and the scrub towards the creek and you see a lot of grasshoppers hopping around or whatever, then yeah, 100% go something that's going to imitate that, match that hatch. If I don't see any frogs, I don't see any insects or anything of that like, then it tells me the fish are going to be feeding on yabbies in the creek itself, or on rainbow fish, pencil fish, so they're going to be on a bait fish imitation. Then it brings me back to my 3-inch minnows in that sort of more natural colour.